Alright, so it's been a while. I know I said that if enough stuff had changed that I would make an updated version of this. And while not a ton has changed in the meta, I do think a few things have come up to warrant a bit of an update. Some of the stuff isn't going to change. Uh, Things like keeping Dragoon unlimited, unlimiting Nessie, unlimiting E-Telly, um, unlimiting Skullcrabat. Like things that just kind of makes sense based on the progression of the ban list itself and the flow of the game. Like, yes, Pendulum is getting like Electromite 2.0 sometime next year, but I don't think giving them an extra normal summon is going to change that. Putting Etali to 3 helps push some newer archetypes that are coming, like the Punk archetype and Grand Creators. And Nessie to 3 just feels like natural progression because it still isn't being played. So also some of this is highly unlikely to happen. And Light Stage the 3. Just give them their field spell back. Uh, I did actually miss a card on here. I'll go over that at the end. So let's just start from the top of the list here. For Invoked, it's been popping up a bit more recently thanks to DPE. And I think there's two different ways that you can hit this. You can limit either Alistair or Invocation. In that situation, I do think Invocation is a bit of a better limit because it's harder to get back. You can add back a banished Alistair if you can get an Invocation in the grave, but you can't get back a banished Invocation. Or you can just straight up ban Magical Meltdown. It's the Searcher, it's a Ruling's Nightmare. It's honestly probably the better hit if you really want to hit the invoked side of things. The deck's been around far too long. And it's always top tier, usually at the start of a format and at the end of a format. So I think something in there has to go. We're also going to ban Arch Nemesis Protoss. Regardless of what some people think, banning Protoss does not make Sword Soul unplayable. It just gets rid of their searchable floodgate. Protoss is near impossible to play against, and the fact that they can just search it whenever just makes it that much worse. Speaking of floodgates that are searchable, we're gonna ban Scythe. It's Buster Lock all over again. It's way too consistent. All you need is 2 monsters and then another effect, which is Fusion Destiny. I just personally I don't like floodgates, especially ones like these that just stop you from playing the game outright. I'm gonna skip Baby for now because that's more of a joke. Called by, I'm gonna put the 2. I think we're past the point of having to push triple tactics talent. Yes, it's a very powerful card, but I think it'll be fine. There was a comment on the last one pretty recently about not hitting Drytron, but I do think that if we leave it untouched after hitting all the other decks, it'll become much more powerful. So while I'm not gonna do anything to Ava, I am still gonna say to limit Nova. We're gonna stick with the theme of limiting searchers because that honestly seems to be Konami's whole theme. Droplet, it's such a powerful card. And yes, I actually have 3 now. But that card is rough in the right decks. I have heard opinions of like MBT and a couple others saying that it's really a necessary evil right now, which to me just says other things about the format. Like if you need a specific card for a format to be fine, then the format's not actually fine. I'll leave it at 3 for now, but I do feel like the card might need hit in the future. Fractal, we're still gonna move to 1. There are 2 different ways to hit Bird Up. The more popular of the 2 that I'm seeing is to put Recital Starling to 1. I think as far as hitting Bird Up as a deck, that is a pretty rough hit. After doing, like, a bit of play testing with even just, like, pure Lyrilusks with 1 Recital, it doesn't do much. Like, even with a cracked hand, I was only ending on like, Ensemble and Cyborg, which, yes, still sounds pretty powerful, but it doesn't have, like, the backup of, like, the Draco Future and a couple of other things that you could have. I think limiting Fractal is a little better, but again, that's kind of bias peeking in. I love Tri-Brigade, but I'd like to at least keep pure Lyrilusk playable. Hitting Fractal hurts the Tri-Brigade half of it, which Tri-Brigade is the splashable part of the deck. You can really throw Tri-Brigade into anything that plays one of the Tri-Beast types, and it can make the deck better. Whereas you can't really splash Lyrilusk into things. It just doesn't work as well. So yeah, hitting one of these 2 is probably what'll end up happening. I would rather see Fractal get hit, but I could also see the situation where Fractal stays at 3 and they hit Recital, because like, hitting the direct searcher, especially one that's not hard once per turn. Gazelle, just give Salamangreat players something. Gazelle to 3, Circle to 3. I think Stalio can stay at 1. Like, it it could easily go to 3, and it wouldn't matter because nobody's gonna play 3. But give them like 3 Gazelle or 3 Circle. Harp again, just for my own benefit. Uh, just give us 1 Harp. The deck's not really doing anything right now. 1 Harp isn't going to change that. We don't have Mermaid anymore, so it's not like the whole 2-card engine thing is still around. Imperial Order, get that out of here. The card is so strong, even at 1, even with the errata. Just paying 700 life points during each standby phase to shut down entire archetypes and entire decks is fine. Like, I'll gladly pay 700 life points every standby phase to shut down Sky Striker or Invoked. Lunalight Tiger, I'd like to see 1 of. Again, just make the deck playable again. 1 Tiger isn't really going to do too much. We don't have Azathoth anymore. Rank 4 Turbo isn't really very viable. Just give back 1 Tiger, see what happens. I really don't think it's going to do much. Ban Mystic Mine, please. Like, just end this hell that is Mystic Mine burn. It's turned into like a going second staple. Just decks that want to blind second, they main board it so that they can just drop it on turn 2 and shut off their opponent's entire board. It's Dark Ruler without the downside, pretty much. But yeah, it's time for that card to go. Sekka's Light, again, just put it to 3. It encourages unique deck building. Yes, it's a draw 2, but you're not playing any other spells or traps in the deck. Like, you have to play all monsters for it to really be effective. I am still thinking Colossus to 1, just to go along with the whole like toss format situation. Like, they gave Engage back, they gave Mirage Stalio back. I'm hoping at some point here we'll get Harp and Colossus back. Colossus is the biggest problem of the four, uh, for sure. But I still think that, just out of fairness, I guess, just put him back at one, see what happens. Worst case scenario, in 3 months you can ban him again. Uh, Nadir Servant, I still think to one. Yes, it's part of the invoked Shadal, um, which, by the way, Winda at one, you should only have to deal with her once. Um, I think Shadal pure is fine, but as long as it's splashable in other decks, which it's always going to be, uh, like Winda should be limited. And then the Deer Servant for Dogmatica is just an automatic plus. It's either baiting out an Ash or giving them like 2 extra cards or a pop. It's just a ridiculous card. I'm being a little rough on like the Dogmatica Invoked Shadal deck, but I do think it's probably one of the more consistent decks in the format, and it's one of the harder ones to hit and have something matter, especially with Despia sitting in the background just waiting its turn. Uh, I still think ban the Wind Barrier statue, just sticking with the pattern of banning floodgates. There are decks that can play under it, but for so many decks, it's just an auto scoop, especially when it has protection from like Cyborg or like Tri Brigade Rendezvous. I have Summon Limit and Tikaboo down here because they're probably the two most oppressive floodgates right now. I'd really be fine with seeing either of these limited. Tikaboo for haha reasons, Summon Limit because I hate the card, the like combo decks. So yeah, bias. But I do think that one, if not both of these, should like needs to go. It makes certain decks like actually rogue or like meta relevant, and it makes other decks just unplayable. Zeus. Zeus was a problem in multiples back when like Zodiac was floating around. I think where we're at now, it's actually kind of okay. Like, yeah, you can Zeus onto a Zeus. And I made like a funny haha during playtesting of making a 12 material Zeus in pure Leerlusk. But I don't really see multiples of it coming up that often right now, just because there's not a whole lot of meta relevant decks outside of like Bird Up that can use it. And in Bird Up, you're only playing one because of extra deck space. Even like pure Leerlusk, I think I was playing two, and the second one very rarely came up. I personally think that card's fine right now. BW, Qinglong, Lulu, either one of those to one, just to stick with the theme of like hitting current format decks. I'm aware that Hulk is still around, but I really think that Jet Synchron could come back to one and be okay. It would give Synchrons a bit of a boost and really not do much else. Like, it is kind of a free extender and it helps decks that want stuff in the graveyard, but I don't see it being as broken as it was like back in Synchro Eldritch format. Eldritch has kind of moved on, and stuff like Link Cross isn't around anymore. I personally think Jet Synchron could come back to 1, or if you don't wanna have a one-for-one target, then go for, like, O-Lion. So, Baby and Misk is a joke between myself and Cyclops. Uh, he wants Misk back to 3, which dinos aren't doing anything. I get it. But I do think putting Misk back to 3 would make the deck very relevant again, especially with the scrap package. Now, I've told him, because he thinks that if I want to get a copy of Harpor off the list, that Misk should come back to 3, which I don't really think is fair, but I digress. So my proposal to him is he gets 3 Misk, but we ban Baby. Or at the very minimum, we limit Baby. Which he has responded with, fine, I'll just play more Pteranodon. Not really the same card. It kind of does the same thing to an extent. Um, and I've said before in these videos that I think Baby would be a good hit to Dino if we needed to do another one. Yeah, in this case, I'll say like Misk to 3, give them their protection and special summon back, but we're gonna hit Baby and prevent the loop and the like 3 to 4 free special summons per turn. So as I mentioned earlier, there is a card that I forgot, and that card is Fusion Destiny. I do think that we should limit Fusion Destiny. The OCG just banned it. I realize that we're getting an ultimate rare printing in the next OTS set, so it's highly unlikely that they'll hit it. But I do think that's really the only card in that package that can be justifiably hit. Yeah, I know there's Verte, ban Verte, ban Verte. Verte helps so many like rogue and lower tier decks. Banning it just so you can keep Fusion Destiny seems kind of dumb to me. Like, it just doesn't make much sense. I get the whole logic of people thinking that Verte is the problem and it's too generic, yada yada. You want to talk about generic? Like, you can just do your whole combo, slap down Fusion Destiny, and get a DP. That, or just go through all of your opponent's negates, throw down Fusion Destiny, and you're good to go. Just, I don't think banning Fusion Destiny is right either, like the OCG did. So I'm saying put it to 1. Um, make DPE a little less flashable, because right now it is everywhere, and I mean everywhere. It is in every single deck, and it's way too early to hit that card. There's no point in hitting Celestial or Dasher or Plasma, because you can just swap them out for other for other heroes. So let's just limit Fusion Destiny, see what it does. I realize Cyborg is not on the list either, because along with Verte, I just think you're if you're trying to ban Cyborg, you're trying to ban the enabler and not the problem. Whereas I think the win barrier in that situation is the problem. Cyborg can summon out so many other cards that don't lock the opponent out of the game. Like even in Bird Up, turn 1, yeah, you might summon Win Barrier, but after that, you can summon out like a Cobalt Sparrow. You can summon out any of your other Leer Lust pieces. You can even use it in like any other Winged Beast deck, like Harpies, to get pluses off of, which sounds really powerful, but it's not that strong of a card. All you have to do is set a few back row and you're limiting your opponent. ban win barrier, see if Cyborg still is a problem, because people did the same thing with Auroradon when it came out. They thought that card was a huge problem. They started banning some of the other cards that were played with it, and all of a sudden it wasn't a problem anymore. But yeah, if you guys think that I'm missing anything, just let me know. Otherwise, we'll find out in a few weeks if I was right or wrong. Have a great holiday.